was inside of Ease at that time, and I saw one of the most incredible corporate pivots that I've ever seen. And remember, the one thing, and if you cannot understand me that well or get me, I don't really love any politicians because I just don't think that they're in it for the right reasons. However, I will say that the one thing that I've seen the state of California get right is, remember, they called cannabis essential.
Yeah. New York did that as well.
And those two decisions, I'm going to tell you, saved this industry.
Yeah. More people probably watch that.
Hey, everybody, we're here at Hall of Flowers. We're at the Edwin Rubis Stage. I'm here with Dustin with Good Life Gang. I'm also here with Seth Yakatan with Yakatan and Associates, and I'm going to let him do a brief introduction about what he does, and then we're going to talk to him and ask him some questions.
Oh, I just help people raise money and sell stuff. It's pretty much what I do. It's mundane. Pretty simple.
Well,
by the way, thank you so much for having me, man. I'm honored to be on here. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you making time during the event because I know you're actually speaking as well too. So you're one of the Iconoclast speakers.
I am.
And so I appreciate you coming on our little stage here. And again, the point is that we're trying to raise awareness for Edwin Rubis. He served 27 years of a 40-year sentence. The man wasn't even caught with any cannabis. So it's all conspiracy and hearsay. And so we're working really hard to get him out.
And I think you're doing a great job. It's indicative of the fact that one of the most interesting things about our industry is the three of us are sitting here talking about it, and there's hundreds of people incarcerated for talking about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And until that changes, we ain't got nothing.
Yeah. It's our job. If we're in it,
It's
we
our
need to
job.
help get people.
It's our job, man. And politicians and teachers, and I don't mean to offend anyone in that business, get off your ass and do something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Go get a job. Stop taking
Yeah.
my tax money as a politician. Fucking telling me what I'm supposed to do. Like, come on, do something.
Yeah, well,
Figure it out.
Again, we have an obligation. The fact that all of us are here making a living in this industry, and there's people
100%.
who are in jail for decades for doing the exact same thing we're doing. We have an obligation to help those people.
I couldn't agree with you more, man.
Well, let's get into talking about what you do. It's obviously corporate capital finance, which I find very interesting because, quite honestly, as a legacy guy who was just building grows and warehouses clandestinely, this whole thing of cannabis as a business now is really only maybe a decade old, if that. And so let's talk a little bit about how it started and how you see it now, so to speak, as far as financing in cannabis goes.
Wow. You're right. It's about 10 years old. And I think that I think it really started and exploded from about 2012 to about 2014, 15, when you had a bunch of people figure out how to access the public equity markets in Canada.
Right.
And that was kind of the first nitrous oxide boost for us. And then you had a group of venture or private equity people and family office people and debt capital markets people jump in. And it really created the foundation. I think what you've seen, the way that I think about cannabis is every market is its own market. And the rules that apply in California don't apply in Arizona and Oklahoma and Missouri and Michigan and New Jersey. And I think what happened was a lot of the capital that came in assumed things were going to be the same and assumed there was going to be this giant set of idiotic liquidity events, which haven't happened.
Right.
And it's kind of
otherwise known as a pump and dump.
correct. Well, yes and no. Yes and no. But so it's kind of gotten a lot harder, and I don't see it getting easier anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that Canada actually had a big part of that. Man, they came in and just
That's what
scooped
I'm
up
saying.
so much money.
Bunch of public money, but behind a bunch of bullshit.
and they're
big CO2 extractors. We're going to make all the weed for all the world.
A 1 million square foot glass house in the Arctic
And
tundra.
brought in a bunch of public money. And then those guys exited the top and the prices on all those fell off the bottom.
Yeah, those stocks. I remember them
Pump and dump,
stocks.
dude.
Those stocks were $16-20 a share,
They're
and now
cut.
they're down.
I might have done a couple of them.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Who did it? Dude, people were doing it.
Hold on a sec. One me.
Was it one of those things we're not supposed to talk about?
No. It's actually funny because before I really got into rec cannabis, I was a pharmaceutical guy. and I was trying to figure out. I licensed 3 molecules from Raphael Mechoulam himself.
Okay.
And started a company to try and get them developed as FDA-regulated drugs. And I got involved in 1 or 2 of those early deals. And when I started, I was like, yeah, I'm going to figure out how I'm smarter than everyone else because I know how to sell things to pharmaceutical companies, right? So I'm going to take this $7 pre-roll that we're selling in the dispensary, and I'm going to turn it into a $70 pre-roll that I sell behind the counter at a drugstore. Too hard. For you at home, too hard. Yeah. But yeah, I got involved in a couple of those and saw it. I remember the first company that I did, there was a company called Efria. Do you remember that?
I do.
I got $2 million from them as one of my investors. And I walked into a giant, must have been a 500,000 square foot warehouse. Empty.
Yeah.
We're going to grow all the
Yeah.
Well, Canada's been oversupplied. They certainly did too much. So we had that beginning part where everybody's very speculative, and then it didn't turn out the way it wanted. And then we had a little lull, but also COVID then kind of bumped the price up, and all of a sudden everybody got very bullish on it again during COVID.
So you saw a huge COVID bump.
Yeah, people were spending all that government money. Yeah.
Not just that.
They were stuck at home with government money. Nothing other to do than smoke a bunch of weed.
100%. I was inside of Ease at that time, and I saw one of the most incredible corporate pivots that I've ever seen. And remember, the one thing, and if you cannot understand me that well or get me, I don't really love any politicians because I just don't think that they're in it for the right reasons. However, I will say that the one thing that I've seen the state of California get right is, remember, they called cannabis essential.
Yeah. New York did that as well.
And those 2 decisions, I'm going to tell you, saved this industry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you saw people at home. I mean, the numbers at Ease. I remember one day I saw a flash report, and I called one of the guys in data, and I was like, this can't be right. I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're 2 zeros off. Like, this is 2. And it just...
Yeah. Could you imagine if they closed at the black market? Would have exploded?
Would have exploded.
This would have been insane.
I think they also did explode at that point.
I'm sure it all did.
But
Yeah.
to your point, you saw that, and now you've kind of seen a lull again.
Yeah, and people modeled off the growth, which was stupid. I was telling them, hey, look, this is going to come back off.
And what you've seen is the public equity capital that was available vanished because they never got a return.
Yep.
The early big funds, the Gotham Greens and the Meridas and the Entourage Effects, and I don't want to throw shade, but they kind of shot their wad, and they haven't. It's been 7 years, you don't get a return. So if you're in that game, if you do fund 1 and you don't make anybody money, you ain't getting fund 2.
Right.
And what you have left is really very expensive debt or convertible equity capital market.
But I mean, some of those guys must have won, right? At least individuals won because as it rose, they exited. They sold their positions, right?
They did.
Somebody was making all that money.
Individuals won, but the majority, I would say, lost.
You have a very, very finite number of people that have actually made money in cannabis for 2 reasons.
In that specific scheme, you mean?
In all of it, in individuals or in private equity funds for 2 reasons. Because most of the individuals then reinvested in another business. Okay?
Sure.
So the 2 guys that I think have honestly made probably the most money in cannabis are the founders of Select, because they sold the company, they got cash, and they went home.
I could argue that Oregon CBD, the guys that made they like several $1 billion in profit, they're just based on hard seed sale numbers, which is 100%. Insane.
The Lord Jones guys.
Yeah.
I know.
There's a couple big ones.
I know individual investors who also invested in a company and said that's enough. But with the funds, remember what they did is
none of the funds won.
Well, because if you're a fund investor, you're investing in a portfolio
over time
of 10 companies.
Yeah.
So if this company makes money and 9 other companies lose money,
you're still didn't win.
You're done.
No. And all those other ones were just part of the pump, because the 1 or 2 guys that are planning on selling this on the rise,
or not even part of the pump. Like I also talk a lot about these zombie companies, right?
Yeah.
So you walk around here and you see these companies that should be dead and should die and get another life.
Right.
I'll give you an example of that. High Times Magazine, High Times brand, okay?
Which is sad for us old heads.
It's really sad. That was like my intro to weed. Go to 7-Eleven.
I want to hear your take on it.
Man.
You don't, one of the interesting things going back to the legality is that in another industry, in any other industry I've ever been in the pen industry, in the alcohol industry, in the glass industry, you have a set of rules that is governed by a government where you can bankrupt a company. So in cannabis, because we're still federally illegal, you don't have that bankruptcy function.
Yep.
Right.
And not that bankruptcy is bad, but if I'm a professional investor, at least I can remedy something that goes wrong.
Right.
Right. And in cannabis, one of the reasons that you perpetuate zombies is because you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't bankrupt something.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
You can foreclose,
Sure.
and you can accelerate,
Yeah.
and you can put it in receivership, but I can't flush everything and restart it
Yeah.
Right.
because of the federal law. High Times is still around.
I know.
Yeah, we do know.
And they're still trying to do something. And I won't talk about confidentiality, but it's a bunch of doofuses that ran it and a bunch of stupider people that gave it the money. And I will say this, a bunch of dumber people that are running the process. Now, I might be bidding on the assets, but I'll just say that.
Well, listen, I would love to, somebody has to save High Times. And speaking not from the financial part and the people that screwed it all up, fucked it all up, because I get that. We all watched it, the IPO, all that stuff. We were just sitting back on what's going on. And the people that did buy it and started running it in the last it's about 5 years. We just obviously watched them make bad decision after bad decision.
Horrible.
They could just literally go back to like early 2000s model and just do that again, and it would be fine.
I joke around that somebody like Richard Branson needs to just come along and buy it and fix it.
That's
right. We need a billionaire to save it.
So it's honestly, and I'm not divulging any confidentiality, it's a highly viable business.
Yeah.
Still.
Oh,
brand at least.
The name, well, and that actually goes what I was going to say.
It
The
is.
people you named who made money, you guys realize what the common denominator is? They're brands. They're not manufacturers. They're not cultivators. They're not retails. They're actually brands. Select is a brand, right? Lord Jones is a brand. And so recently the big talk has been, do you want a processing company or do you want a brand? Because brands.
I also think there's a bunch of private 1 or 2 state operators that rolled into a harvest or rolled into an acreage who did really well. You know, Jason Vidati is a guy who I have a lot of respect for with Story, who I think did pretty well on a couple of exits and then redeployed. So you got a couple people like that.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I look for and I talk a lot about is just actual cash flow. And if you have a business that's generating actual cash flow in any industry, that's usually good.
Yeah, we got a couple like operating, you know, like Donnie down in New Mexico.
Don't get me wrong.
He's slaying.
There's some operators, but the majority of what Cookies, all the big brands, it's brands. You see names. We're not seeing processors. So here's what I definitely want to get in for our listeners. You know, we've been a small brand for a while now. We came from the legacy market. For people that are like us that haven't done any dipping into finance at all, haven't tried to get some capital behind them, haven't done any of that. And I know I'm probably asking you something silly, but give us like 3 things that like are the most important thing for somebody who's trying to get into capital the first time that you see where people just either they don't think about it or they don't do it or just completely disqualifies them from the beginning and they need to go back and to the chalkboard and get it right.
I think the first thing is that understand the degree of difficulty that you're going into, right? As an example, I might be a competitive cyclist, but I'm not cycling in the Olympics. So if you've never done it before, maybe just start to think about how difficult it is because you're going into an ocean and you don't know what you don't know. So maybe find somebody to talk to and get a little bit of advice. I think that's the first thing.
Yeah.
I think the second thing is do a little bit of homework because with a little bit of preparation, you can be a lot better in terms of just understanding your competitors. Okay? Because one of the biggest red flags that somebody will come to me and say is, well, I have no competition. If you tell me you have no competition, that is the biggest tell for me just to be immediately out.
Yeah.
Right? So just do a little bit of homework. Because, you know, one of the things that I've found in the human condition is that there's not that many novel ideas, right? Irregardless of what religious affiliation you ascribe to. There's like 42 different versions of God.
Sure.
Okay.
Of Jesus, even.
Or what, right.
Yeah.
There's 40 different versions of Jesus.
Yeah,
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, right?
Higher power.
Not just that, but like your idea is not, someone has already thought of your idea.
Right. Nothing new under the sun.
Correct. So that's probably the second thing. And I think the third thing is if you do not know the relative language of valuation, then don't pretend like you do, because that will also usually, for someone who is a sophisticated practitioner of the art, be a signal to either you really know what you're talking about or you really don't know what you're talking about. And for most of the real investors, and there's a few floating around here, what they're not going to tell you is like, if you answer question number 2 and question number 3 wrong, you're irrecoverable, right? Like you're just done. I don't care what you have,
right,
or how much I like it. I'm just not going to put money in. So I think it's probably those 3 things that are pretty simple.
Yeah, no, that completely makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I like that.
You got any?
All sorts of crazy questions.
Dustin's good about that.
Hit me.
Well, no, hit it with it. So let's talk about that just a little bit more. So it would be very similar to somebody who doesn't know cannabis coming up and trying to talk to me about how to roll a joint or how to grow a plant or what nutrients you're using. It's very easy for people in cannabis to spot somebody who is not knowledgeable. So I agree.
I think I got it. So maybe if I'm starting out, I'm going to maybe tap into the industry, the culture a little bit to figure out who are the professionals I need to hire to get advice on how to do this thing right. And then I'm going to fact check them. I'm going to do my own research. I'm not just going to listen to what they say, but I'm also, if it matches my research, and then from there, I'm going to go find probably some sort of professional intermediary that's going to help me communicate with the money people the way that I need to. It's like, someone like you, perhaps, where they, this is the guy that will cuss with you on a podcast, but also knows how to speak the, secret language of money foo. So again, it kind of circles back to the beginning. Hire what you don't know, hire a professional to help you figure out. And it's going to save you a lot of money in the long run.
Yeah, I'm going to say you don't need to hire somebody like
Sure, you can YouTube foo it if you...
No, I think there's
University.
If you're earnest and you're not super annoying,
Well, this is just life lessons now.
there are some people like me who will actually give you time and mentor you and help you, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's that way to do it. But I also think like one of the reasons that people like me is I'm just going to punch you in the face.
Sure.
I'm just going to tell you the truth. And I think what you need maybe also is to surround yourself with a group of mentors that are going to tell you the truth, the hard truth.
Right.
And I'm 40, I'm 53, and in this day and age, younger people don't want to be offended.
Oh, it's terrible.
And I'm sorry, I'm patently offensive. I'm sorry you are offended, but
no, I'm not. That's a you problem.
But you need that truth.
You do. And honestly, especially if you're going to be talking about something like we're talking about with finance, there's no room for BS in it. You need to just lay it out.
Yeah, because it's going to multiply and be a much bigger problem down the road if we don't snub it right now.
It is.
That's just business.
You need the truth. And some people don't want to hear that. They can't accept it.
Too soft for business.
Well, and
if the kitchen's too hot.
Well, I first noticed you on LinkedIn. It's funny you mentioned that out LinkedIn. And I didn't realize we were the exact same age. I just turned 53 a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations.
And so thank you very much.
Good work, boomers.
I'm happy to make it.
Kicking it.
But that's also a part. I'm going to get a little part in here for Edwin. That's actually what got me motivated. Edwin's 56th birthday was only a couple weeks before me, and that's what got me really going on this, because you or I could be Edwin. We could have spent the last 27 years in jail.
You know what's funny about you and me at our age? Like, I was out the other night with a bunch of kids, and I pulled out a kind of a 1 ounce Mason ball jar of weed.
I love it.
And they were like, "Oh my God, this is so amazing!" And I was like, when I was your age, if I had one nug, I was getting incarcerated.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I was getting incarcerated. You remember when we were kids, you'd have a roach in the ashtray of your car. You'd be like, "Oh, God, right?"
Yeah.
My brother caught a charge outside of Gainesville in the 90s with a gram and a pipe.
That's
and
the thing. It's like when you go to Texas or
He went
Florida.
to jail for a gram and a pipe.
Man.
In Gainesville.
And now Texas and Florida are some of the easiest places to get weed in the country.
Dude, I have heard, I was on the phone call last night with somebody who was telling me about these cash and carry warehouses in Texas. You hear about this?
Probably have a lot of THCA available, right?
You name it.
Yeah. Mushrooms, chocolates.
Name it.
Yeah, it's
and
wild.
it's in there.
Yeah. Look at this hemp.
This is hemp.
Look at this is hemp.
Legal hemp. It's legal hemp. It's THCA legal.
This guy sold all his licenses, his state licenses in Michigan, got a hemp license, and can sell this now all over the country. And it's just it's high THCA. And his team just looked at the COAs and said, we're compliant.
We live in a wild place right now. So if
Wild.
you would have even said 10 years ago that we would have a THCA bill that would allow people to basically grow pot and ship it around the country, I would have said you're crazy. We were all working on trying to get into these highly regulated, state-sanctioned programs.
This is nuts.
Yeah, your governor just banned the sale of that in this state.
California just
lots
banned.
of, like in Texas,
Yep.
a lot of the markets that don't have legal is you can buy that at the gas station.
And basically, it's come down to having a legal defense.
Have you guys smoked this?
Yeah, it's
We actually
fantastic.
did.
We've been
We
smoking
smoked
joints. Yeah, he sent us so much. It's really good. You can have that if you want to take it and smoke it.
The reality of it is
I want this.
all weed is THCA. Okay, so I have tests from my state-sanctioned products that were grown and tested in 2015 in California, and I was coming in at 0.2 THC.
Delta
all
9.
the rest of Delta 9.
Compliant hemp now.
So just a standard flower that's grown competently can pass the Farm Bill test.
I am gobsmacked by this.
Yeah.
I am
Imagine his surprise, and all of a sudden they're selling it all over the country.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so everybody's doing it. So, basically it just comes down to almost like medical was in California. We just got we were given a defense. That's basically what.
Right, and they took it, an arguable defense. They said, you missed this little thing in the bill, in the Farm Bill.
Prop 215 was just a defense. You and your doctor could say, I need to use cannabis, and it gave you a viable defense. That's what Prop 215 was. SB 420 was the collective part that came along in 2003. And so it's basically the same thing. Now the Farm Bill has given people a viable
federal defense this time.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for coming out. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, it was nice.
We're gonna wrap it up here with Seth.
How can people get a hold of you?
Oh yeah, tell us how everybody can get a hold of you.
Just find me on LinkedIn. I mean, honestly, I've got a tiny presence there, and it seems like it's going well. So just DM me.
Do find him on LinkedIn. I'm gonna tell you right now, LinkedIn is the most cannabis-friendly application there is. Right now, period. It truly is right now. I've never been censored on it. I could honestly put sales of my product on it and they wouldn't do anything. I don't bother though. But LinkedIn is the spot to be at.
So shameless plug, I am speaking at Hall of Flowers at 4:00 today about LinkedIn.
Interesting.
And it is an amazing place for cannabis.
Yeah.
I've been banned 4 times.
Oh, okay. Well,
There is a limit.
Well, no, but you are making waves in LinkedIn, and that's where a lot of cannabis business is happening. Because let's face it, we brought it out of the shadows and we put it in the light.
Great place and a safe space.
Yeah.
I want to thank you and your brother for what you're doing, taking a leadership position in the industry and being
definitely.
a voice for everybody. If it wasn't for you guys, there'd be a big hole in what's going on. So I just want to thank you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. We still get goosebumps when people give us those props, and it's I joke.
But you do what you're doing is important, and there aren't enough people like what you're doing, and you're in it for the right reasons, and your message is on point, and there's a strategy, and you have the ability, I think, to cross a lot of barriers with your platform, and you do it in a very elegant way and a very professional way. And it works all the way from the pre-ICO OG people all the way to the suits on Washington. And I just want to thank you guys for doing that.
Well, thank you.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you so much. This is supposed to be about you, but I appreciate that. That's a perfect way to wrap this up. Hall of Flowers,
fantastic.
Edwin Rubis Stage, Seth Yakatan. Appreciate you coming out today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.